So we're here for the second official episode of the Under the Number podcast. This time with Conrad Ukropina, one of my old teammates from Stanford. We overlapped in the 2016 season, my freshman year, his fifth year, my only year on the team. Again, his fifth year on the team. He was a captain. He was on his way to having a shot in the NFL. He did Rose Bowls. He was there at what I would argue is probably the peak of Stanford football ever, potentially in the history of the program. So super pumped to have him on. Just kind of want to start off somewhat chronologically. How does one become a kicker?
Brent, thanks for having me on. Fired up to be here. That's a great question. I think the majority of kickers come from a soccer type background, and I think when you see a kicker in high school, you can tell pretty much right away if they have a chance to play in college football because it has their leg swing been developed yet, and it's one of those things just like golf where the sooner you start kicking stuff, usually the more natural you are at it. And so growing up, I wanted to be a quarterback. That was my dream. My dad went to Washington State, and my best memories with him were sitting on the couch on Saturday watching Washington State Cougar football. And it was my dream to someday wear the crimson uniforms and go up to Washington State and play quarterback. And so I go into high school just with that one goal in mind. And I go to Loyola High School, big all-boys Jesuit school in downtown LA. And I'm in this really close quarterback battle. I'm close to being named the starter, and I break my arm in 4 places in our preseason scrimmage, inter-squad scrimmage. Absolutely devastated. I had been going home saying, "Mom, I'm going to be the quarterback. High school's going to be easy for me. I'm going to be able to talk to all the girls." And now I'm just the kid with the broken arm on the team. But I just made 100 friends on the freshman football team. And so I wanted to stay on the team and be active. So I'd go to practice every day with a cast, up to my shoulder. And all I could do at practice was kick. And I discovered a hidden talent. It was like, oh my gosh, I can kick the football, far from my background of playing soccer my whole life since I was 3 years old in the front yard with my brothers, kicking things and throwing things. And so ended up kicking through the rest of high school. And I kind of like to think that kicking chose me in a way. And it flipped for me being this guy. I was like, I want to be the quarterback. I want to be the guy to being, I want to be the kicker. I want to be the guy in that realm. And ended up getting recruited to Stanford, and actually thought that I was going to go to Harvard. And I ended up being ranked the #1 punter in California. And decently high. I was I think #3 kicker in California. And so I decided to go to all these college camps. So the summer between my junior and my senior year, all of the colleges that had been recruiting me, I went to Northwestern, I went to University of North Carolina, I went to Duke, I went to UCLA, I went to USC. I went to go and kick in front of the coach. And I also went to Cal, and then I go to Stanford. And Stanford was just a pipe dream. My mom was from the Bay Area, and, just kind of I loved Andrew Luck, the quarterback inside me. So I was like, let's go up to Stanford, even though they're not recruiting me, and let's just go to the camp and see what happens. And dude, when I went to the Stanford camp, I just had a lights out day.
Right.
And so what happened was all of the Ivy Leagues go to those camps. Harvard, just on the spot, is like, hey, you're our guy. We want to offer you a spot. I remember the coach's name was Joe Villapiano. Built a great relationship with him. Vips, yeah. Coach Vips. Yes, dude.
Yeah.
He's the man.
Yeah.
So Harvard's I'm their guy, and they had won the Ivy League that year. So just like with anything in recruiting, then all the other Ivies just followed suit. And so I end up getting, offers, however you call it, for Ivy League to pretty much every Ivy League school. And so it comes time for official visits. Now we go to, play my senior year, we do well. And I decide you can go on 5 official visits at that time. You're only allowed 5. And so I was like, I want to do 5.
Did you have any other offers outside of the Ivies?
So I had Fresno State, Middle Tennessee State, and Idaho, and then a bunch of walk-ons. I could have walked on at USC, UCLA. I could have walked on at Cal. I went to their camp. I could have walked on at Northwestern, but really it was.
I'm sure Middle Tennessee State loved their odds with that lineup.
Yeah, dude, that was so random. So I go on 5 visits because I just wanted to do that with my mom. I just thought it'd be really fun.
Yeah.
So I end up doing Dartmouth, Harvard, Penn. I went to Yale, and then I went to Stanford. Just because I just thought it'd be a fun tour. It's like a free weekend trip. Like, why not, rip it with the parents? And so I basically thought that I was going to go to Harvard. I was all but committed, and I play in this new All-American game. So, there's like Under Armour, there's the U.S. Army, and then my year there's this new one called the Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. I knew you were going to say that.
Yes.
The blue and white, right?
Yeah.
Blue and white logo. It was wrong when I was...
Yeah. So I was the inaugural one.
Nice.
Great story about that one, actually. And my first day at the Semper Fi Bowl, I sit on the bus, and this is back when it was like iPod Touches were the thing. So I have my iPod Touch, and this big dude comes and sits next to me on the bus. And, I'm this small punter at the time.
You weigh like $160?
Yeah, maybe. Like dripping wet, you know what I mean? And like this dude comes and sits next to me, and I'm just like, oh my God, they do not make dudes like this at my high school. Like just jacked, you know what I mean? Just zero body fat.
Yep.
And he goes, hey dude, how's it going? He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm playing this like, game on my iPod Touch. It was like a zombie game. And he's like, can I play? And I was like, yeah, dude, absolutely. I just want to make friends. I just showed up at the Semper Fi Bowl in Phoenix. And so I give him my iPod Touch, and he plays, and he like, loves it. It's this like zombie game where you run around and like shoot. It's so dumb. And so then we became buddies. And every day on the bus, we would sit next to each other. Every day. And we were just super cool friends. This dude was the coolest dude. I loved him.
So he didn't just like you for your iPod.
Oh, yeah, we became
true
friends.
Friendship.
That was like the first bonding moment. And the best part was he wasn't playing in the game because he told people he was hurt. But then he told me, he's like, I'm not playing in the game because I don't want to learn the plays. Just straight up. He's like, I do not want to learn the plays. I'm not playing in the game. He said, quote, I'm just here for the free shit. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep in touch with this dude. He ends up committing to Georgia at the game as a running back. And it's Todd Gurley.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So Todd Gurley and I became like fast friends at the Semper Fi game. We keep in touch. He still follows me on Twitter and Instagram.
That's so
And all because of an iPod Touch, dude. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley,
we're boys.
You ended up in the Semper Fi Bowl, you said, as a punter, right?
That's right.
Wasn't this partially because of some struggles as a kicker? Or is my timeline wrong here?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So
despite having the great kicking performance at Stanford and leading in, right?
Totally.
Leading into senior year. Right?
Yeah, great question. And only really, I think my high school friends know this or remember this because they used to make fun of me a lot. But my senior year of high school, I was a really good punter, really good kickoff guy. So I was being recruited as a punter to most schools. I was the number 1 ranked punter in California. And my senior year, my first game, I remember, have all this hype. I'm a dude being recruited, right? I'm at a big D1 high school. My first game, I remember Brian Polian, who's the Stanford special teams coordinator at the time. He's at the game because he's recruiting Cody Whitfield, who was my year at Loyola, ended up going to Stanford. Really good wide receiver and defensive back, good friend too. And I'm so nervous, dude. I remember I threw up before the game, and I go out to kick a 52-yard field goal. And my first game of the season, I was like, Conrad, this is your year, and the holder drops the snap. And so I have to stop and take basically a 1 step to kick a 52-yard field goal, and it comes up like an inch short. It's actually on my highlight film.
He misplaced it and tried to set it.
Dropped it, so I had to stop. Right? Timing's off, so I have to take a 1 step and kick it. Yeah. It's a couple feet short. I still have that you can look it up on my high school highlights on YouTube. I just like cut it right before it went through. Because of course I made my highlights, obviously.
Oh, I did that as a quarterback.
Dude.
Every QB in high school, there were plenty of drops. They just cut it. Perfect ball.
Cut it. Yeah, perfect ball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I missed that. And so I start off 0 for 1. And I remember before the season, I told myself, I need to make every field goal this year. Like I'm going 20 for 20 every PAT. And I already start off 0 for 1. And then the next game, I go out to kick a 56-yard field goal, which is hard for any kicker, and I miss it. And
52 and 56 to start the season, to be fair, is
hard.
Pretty unheard of for high school.
Right. I feel like even as a quarterback, right, you start the game, you want to throw, like some screens, a slant.
Absolutely.
Right? Like get warm
Absolutely.
a little bit.
One
and
step.
As a kicker, like you can get 10 kicks with, kickoffs and PATs, or you can literally get like 1. Right, depending on how the game goes. So it starts off wrong, and I ended up getting in my head, and I just could not make kicks. And me watching the Dallas Cowboys kicker this past season just really reminded me of that, and I really felt for him too, because it's just so incredibly mental.
And you told me about this before. In practice, it was no problem.
Yeah. Totally. In practice, I was lights out. I could make anything. And there was just this mental block called the yips, whatever it was. I would just go to the game and I just could not make it. And the worst part about high school is, in hindsight, I'm sure I was mean too, but your friends are mean, dude. And I'm at an all boys school, and I would come back and I'm in this tough place because, I want to be a kicker and this is my future. This is how I'm going to get recruited to college. And, I'm just missing everything. And you'd come back to high school and dudes would be like, oh, there's, 1 for 10 Conrad. And so I ended up going 1 for 10. It was really bad.
Well, also, when your friends are chirping you for that, you're like, it's only my, future on the line that we're talking about.
It's only my future scholarship and trying to.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying this.
Yeah, dude. So I just fully embrace it. I'm like, okay, you got to roll with the punches, whatever. I broke my arm and then, became a kicker. So maybe this is the next thing. So I'm just going to be a punter. So,
you literally went 1 for 10 your senior year. Right?
Literally, I made every PAT. So there's this disconnect. Every PAT lights out, right down the middle bomb.
Just shows how much of a mess.
But just field goals, literally be a 20-yard field goal in the right hash, and I can make it. It was so absurd. It's the yips, whatever you want to call it. I had it, dude. But punting, kickoffs, that was great. So going back, week before Stanford's official visit, I think I'm going to Harvard. I go and I play really well in the Semper Fi game, which is January 1. Lance Anderson, who was the defensive coordinator, he calls me and says, hey, our special teams coordinator has just left. You're the number 1 kicker on our board. Do you want to come for official visit? And at this point, I'm fully thinking I'm going to Harvard. And I say, absolutely. Come up that next weekend. And I go to Stanford, and it was just the best weekend. I remember I went to SAE and, with all the guys on the football team, and they were just so nice. I was like, oh, you're a recruit. Come and hang with us. Come and drink with us. You've got to come to Stanford. We need you here. Versus when I went to Harvard, I remember we literally went to the football final club on our official visit. And we show up at the final club, and the Harvard football captain opens the door in a tuxedo, and he says, hey, guys, we have a private event tonight. Get the fuck off our porch. And I was like, oh, dude, that's the captain of the football team. This was Harvard's biggest recruiting weekend. And you're saying we can't even come in and hang out with you? And it's
that's not a good sign.
Just not a good look. So it was really the people for me that just fully pushed me over the edge. Of course, also opportunity to earn a scholarship, opportunity to play in the Pac-12, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of a no-brainer. So I basically flipped from Harvard to Stanford. And I come there as a preferred walk-on in 2012. Yeah.
Who were some of the guys in your recruiting class? Who were some of the guys that you knew once you committed, or that you thought in your head, I cannot believe I'm teammates with this guy?
Yeah. Dude, I want to get into that. I want to add one thing too, just with the whole Shaw, and then we'll go to the teammates. So the special teams coordinator had left right before I came, and so they brought in a new guy named Pete Alomar, who ended up being my special teams coach. He's the man for all 5 years. Pete Alomar before Stanford was at Fresno State, and I was recruited at Fresno State. And I remember after the Stanford camp where I was driving from Stanford back to Pasadena, and my mom was like, Conrad, we should go visit Coach Alomar at Fresno State. Because he had come to one of my games. He had come and seen me kick at a park one time, built a great relationship with me and my family. And I remember saying, Mom, like, I'm already basically committed, you know, I'm going to go to Harvard, you know, or I'm going to go to Stanford. Like, I don't want to go see Fresno State. She's like, no, like, you should go. You should go. Like, we told him, you know, we'd probably go. Let's go see him. So we go see Coach Alomar, have a great visit at Fresno State. It was awesome. And then he ends up becoming my coach at Stanford. So just such a good lesson of don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
You know, if people are going out of their way to recruit you or be nice to you, like, always show the respect back. Because if I would have blown him off and been like, oh, you know, I'm going to Stanford, then, you know, it would have just started with a really, you know, bad taste in everyone's mouth.
Absolutely.
So just a great lesson there. But so I show up my freshman year. So I was the first like real mix of Shaw guys and Harbaugh guys.
Right.
But I was coming into a Harbaugh class. And so going back to your last question of, you know, who are the guys, the only guy who I knew or had looked up in my recruiting class was Barry Sanders Jr. Of course, it's Barry Sanders' son. Yeah. And I remember coming into it, I had seen his highlight tape on, you know, Huddle, I think at the time.
Yeah.
Right. And the dude was just cooking dudes. Like, it's if you haven't seen Barry's high school highlight tape, go right now and watch it. It's unbelievable. And so I remember thinking, like, oh, you know, what's this guy going to be like? He's probably going to be this, you know, celebrity guy. Dude, I meet him my first day, and he was the nicest, most genuine human being. We instantly become friends.
He seems that way.
And right then, I'm just thinking, dude, like, this was the right decision. Meeting Barry, that is the kind of guy who's just a Stanford guy, so good. He just loved it, was so positive, such a good teammate, and he's still a great friend to this day. So Reed Miller, a long snapper, we show up to camp. And, you know, everyone had already kind of been there. And do also want to give a shout out to Zach Hoffpower. So Zach and I played in the Semper Fi game together, and we also became really great friends. And I love Zach, still love him to this day. And we ended up being friends all through college, but Zach showing up, Zach was like my one friend that I already had. So I just like stuck with him, and we did everything together our freshman year. Really miss him a lot. And, yeah, just a really great dude, but bringing back a lot of memories. Anyways, yeah, man. So Zach, Barry Sanders, Reed was my roommate. He was a great guy. And so we actually get stuck sharing a locker, Reed and I.
Splitting it.
So this is before you got there, we had the old locker rooms. Yeah. It was maybe a third the size of the locker room that we have now. Just tiny. And so every dude had a locker except for Reed and I. And it was because a guy quit over the summer. And so I think because that guy quit, they had a locker open. So Reed and I were able to take it. And our locker was kind of in the back of the locker room. And it was named MLK Boulevard.
Your alleyway of lockers.
Yes, our alleyway of lockers. And it was because it was just a lot of guys on the team, you know, who were, you know, there was just a lot of black guys on the team, and it was me and Reed.
That's what it was known to the whole team.
Literally everyone called it that. I obviously did not name it that. I'm this, you know, 160-pound walk-on freshman, and they're like, I show up, and this one guy, I remember it was like, oh, you're in MLK Boulevard. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And he was just like, good luck, bro. And so in order to get into MLK Boulevard, if you wanted to walk through, because there's like a specific part, you had to have a pass. And like, for some reason, Reed and I just automatically had a pass because our locker was there. So that kind of like made us really cool because we could go into MLK, but no one else could. But it was wild. Literally, the locker on my right was Stephon Taylor, who was like the star running back from the year before. Awesome dude. to the left was like Ricky Seal, I remember, and Jamal Rashad Patterson. And it was definitely just like, dude, we're here, man. This is college football. Like, and dude, camp was really hard. My first camp. And so I remember in camp going from high school where I'm the man to now I'm the low man on the totem pole. And literally Alomar was really analytical. And so everything we did in practice was filmed and everything was charted. And so my job as the young guy was before practice, I would go up and get the clipboard, and then I had to bring it out to practice. And then at the end of practice, I had to get the clipboard and bring it back. And as a freshman, you know, guys would make sure that your life wasn't super easy. And there were multiple times where like the clipboard would get hidden. And I would need to try.
Too easy.
Oh, dude.
It's too easy.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, so like the clipboard would get hidden in camp. And, you know, one time I couldn't find it. And it turns out that, you know, one of the other people just brought it in on purpose so they knew that I wouldn't be able to find it.
And you're walking around the field looking for non-existing clipboard.
Yeah. And I need to, you know, go and shower and get in the cold tub and go to PT and then go to dinner and then get back to meetings, right?
Freshman year, like the being an 18-year-old freshman, walking around a locker room with guys who are 21, 22, maybe even 23 years old, their fifth years.
Yeah.
You really feel kind of like a kid in a lot of ways versus like grizzled seasoned guys. Like I'll never forget seeing Johnny Caspers, for example, who was the center in 2016.
Yeah.
He literally looked like a lumberjack.
Yeah.
Like thickest beard ever. He could have passed for 46 years old and he was like 22.
Dude, absolutely. A couple of things pop up there. Number one, they needed guys just for the linebackers to run and do their drill. And all I had to do was turn to one way and then they would just have to like swim and go butt side.
So you could have been a bag. You
could have literally been a bag, but instead it was Conrad. And I remember the first guy running at me is Shane Scove. And I mean, if you remember the year before that, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. The dude is just a specimen. Like, he's just scary.
An exceptionally scary college
just
on top of being a physical specimen.
6'5". Like, oh my god!
Wouldn't you do that? He did the black like war paint.
Yeah, he does the like, war paint and stuff. Yeah. Like, and he's the man. So I just had to like jump. And I remember the first time I remember we watched it on film. I jump and I just kind of go like this, and I curl into a little ball because it's just scary. And Shane, after I do that, he comes back, he taps me on the back of the head, and he says, "Don't worry, pumpkin, I'm not going to hurt you." And I was just like, oh my god, that's so embarrassing. I totally just flinched with him, you know. But then a couple weeks later, like just to show what a guy he is, I was biking back from meetings, and my like chain fell off my bike. You know, everyone bikes around at Stanford, and Shane Scove doesn't know my name, stops, and like spends 20 minutes putting my chain back on my bike. And so I'm just like, damn, you know, on the field, it's all business. It's a meritocracy. But off the field, these are just great dudes.
That's how a lot of the guys were. I mean, as a freshman preferred walk-on quarterback, again, as near to the bottom of the totem pole as you can get.
Right.
My training camp, it was like, that was McCaffrey, where on the practice field, you're like, this guy is in a different gear. Yeah. Don't talk to him. Yeah. Don't even think about having a side conversation. Right. With him. Doesn't matter if it's a water break. Like, just don't. Just do not approach particularly if you're a freshman. Yeah. Not because he was like a jerk. He was just so the epitome of being locked in. Yeah. And then I remember early on, you're in the cold tubs and the hot tubs after practice, and I was talking to Keller, who couldn't have been a nicer guy. Yeah, man. And McCaffrey comes over, and he's just like, wants to chat, wants to get to know the freshman. We end up talking about how my uncle roomed with his dad at Stanford back in the day. It's a totally normal conversation. Yeah. Like, it's that same thing. We have the recognition of this is a great culture. Like, this is pretty cool. The guys, the people here make a huge difference for the entire program.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, dude. Like, there was a good amount of hazing. Just two things for you. Like, I remember in my
there's always some good stuff.
My second day, you know, I'm a freshman, and there are some fifth years. They just come up to me in the locker room, and just like make eye contact with me, just like this, straight face, and they're like, "Let me see your penis." Just straight up, like your own facial expression. The second day, they're just, "Let me see your penis," and I am just thinking like, "What? Like, what do you?" And we all shower together, right? So it's like And I just remember being so bewildered because I'd never been in a situation like this. And like, my brain is like freaking out over like, what do I do? What do I do? And so I just, kind of walk away. I think Ben Ryan probably came in and saved me. And then like the next day, another guy comes up to me. He's like, "Show me your penis." And I'm just like, oh my God, what did I do?
Picture the deadpan.
Oh,
that was dude. Dalton Schultz to our freshman
Yeah.
class. It was so good.
Yeah.
So he would stand like this far from your face and say something that was like really funny.
Yeah.
But also you just didn't want to be the one on the receiving end of it because it would be one of those lose-lose situations.
Right.
Like
no doubt.
There's no correct
correct
response.
Whatever you say, you're getting ripped. Yeah. And I would also I need to bring up Turley. So Coach Turley, Shannon Turley, he was our strength coach for all 5 years when I was there. I have never feared a human being more ever. And I actually saw him last year at Daniel Marks's wedding. And I remember when I saw him, like that pit in my stomach was still there.
I was what, 28 at the time?
Yeah, it's like a 27-year-old, 28-year-old. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy still strikes the fear of God in me. And, eventually I go up and talk to him after having, like a couple beers to ease in. And I was like, "Coach," and he's like the nicest guy. He's like, "Conrad, how are you?" He remembered I was at business school, like just the best dude. But that all started when I was a freshman, and I remember with my first week of camp, we had muscle milks back in the day in our weight room fridge. So I go down because I'm trying to gain weight. Like I'm 160 pounds. Like I want to get bigger, like Shane Scove. And so
you're this close. You want muscle milk?
Yeah, I'm so close. So I was eating and I was drinking muscle milks every night before bed because I actually had talked with the strength coaches like, "Okay, I want to gain weight." So they're like, "Okay, we need more calories, etc." So I go down and I open up the fridge to get a muscle milk and I hear someone say, "Conrad!" And I turn around and it's Coach Turley. So I like run over there to him because, I want to do everything right. And he says, "What are you doing down here?" And I'm like, I'm getting a muscle milk. And he's like, "Look at the fridge." And in him yelling at me, I hadn't closed the fridge all the way because I, jumped.
He's a professional.
And he's like, and he just looks at me and he's like, "Well," and so I sprint over, close the fridge, run back to him. And I say, "I'm so sorry, Coach. That's totally my fault." And he says, "You know what you are? You're an entitled fuck." And I was just like,
I can hear it now.
I was just silent. And he was like, "Yeah, you're an entitled fuck. Say I'm an entitled fuck." And I'm like, "Oh, well, what?" He said, "Say I'm an entitled fuck." I say, "I'm an entitled fuck." And he said, "You're right. Get out of here." And I run out. And that was my first one-on-one interaction with Coach Turley. And that just set the tone, dude.
So I don't want to cut too far ahead or jump anything. But freshman year, you're still this preferred walk-on.
Yeah.
You're scholarship lists still.
Yeah.
You didn't travel. You redshirted along with probably nearly everyone in your freshman class.
Pretty much.
And Jordan Williamson was the kicker at the time, right? What was the bowl game your freshman year?
Freshman year, we were Rose Bowl. We played Wisconsin, and we won 20-14.
Okay. So that's a great start. Instant Rose Bowl, right?
Sick, dude.
How does it go? At what point do you start getting considered for some playing time? When does it become a competition? When are you even crossing someone's mind as somebody who might earn a scholarship?
Right. I end up my sophomore year being the backup kicker and the backup punter. So I was the backup kicker to Jordan Williamson, the backup punter to Ben Ryan. Since I was the backup, I got to travel with the team to all the games. Yeah. And then a couple games into the season, Jordan Williamson gets hurt. And I remember this was on a Friday. He gets hurt in one of our little practices. And so I'm just thinking, oh my God, I need to kick tomorrow against UCLA. And this was with Brett Hundley. UCLA was super good.
Yeah. Was this game at UCLA in the Rose Bowl?
It was at Stanford.
That's it.
And so, I go from, chilling, lighthearted Conrad to now, oh my God, I need to kick on national television tomorrow. I think we were in the top 10. They were in the top 25 in like a top 25 mashup on ESPN.
Sure, prime time.
Oh yeah. And just not prepared at all. And honestly, dude, I think that was good.
Was that a wake-up call of like, this backup living in La La Land life is not sustainable?
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. I was just totally going through the motions and practice. I would just show up and I would just kick the ball. And now it was like, oh my God, this really matters.
Yeah.
And so I go out. I remember it's just such a blur, those 24 hours. I was so nervous, but it was kind of a semblance of, the quarterback gets hurt in a game, the backup comes in and does well that game because they don't have time to think about it. But then the next week they struggle because they've had a week to think about it. It was kind of a semblance of that. So it happened late in the week. It was just like, oh my God, I'm kicking. So I remember I run out first drive. I kick a 39-yard field goal on the right hash. I remember running out there thinking, oh my God, I'm kicking in a game. I have been doing well in practice, but like high school, I couldn't make anything. And this is just 2 years removed, not that long, and I hadn't had any game experience.
But of course that comes back in your mind.
Oh yeah, dude, that's
right back to where
I run out, I look down at the holder, Ben Ryan, who's the man, and I remember he daps me up, and he just goes, "It's easy." And I was like, "It's easy," and I just take my steps, kick the ball, and it goes in. And I'm like, "Oh my God,
let's go!
It's easy, let's go." So I ended up kicking for the last 8 games of the season, including the Pac-12 championship against Arizona State. We win pretty much all of those games, except for one game against USC. We go down. I make 1 field goal, and then in the fourth quarter, I had a field goal blocked. Some like 6'10" dude broke through and just swatted it, and we ended up losing by 3. And I remember that was my first real instance where it was like, oh my God, my performance directly impacted the outcome of this game and it's going to hurt our team.
Did you have a bunch of friends at that game? It was in LA.
So many friends, yeah. And that was when Twitter was a thing too. And it's so funny too because you go in your Twitter mentions after the game, and kicking is just such a visible position. You're at a bar and the kicker comes on and you have 30 seconds of just the camera on you, right? Yeah. And I remember I saw these tweets, and it was from a bunch of dudes who I kind of knew, and they were tagging me, and they'd be like, "Oh, at Conrad Ukropina, shank," stuff like that. I'm just like, dude, what the hell, man? Like, we were just friends in high school, and so it was just a good wake up call that fans are fans, and that's what it is. Yeah. But we end up going on and losing the Rose Bowl. Geez, we win the Pac-12 championship. Michigan State, dude. Connor Cook. Yeah. That was tough, but dude. So then go into my junior year, and I don't play because Jordan and Ben are both back for their 5th years. I kicked 1 PAT the whole year. They both stay healthy. But this is my junior year claim to fame. I was Christian McCaffrey's host on his official visit my junior year. No idea why, but Coach Shaw calls me into his office. I'm a junior. I'm just like, oh my God, why am I being called into Coach Shaw's office? Like you remember,
it's never a good thing.
He's a pretty hands-off coach.
Also, it never happens.
Yeah, I'd never been called to his office in 3 years. He calls me in. I'm just like, oh my God, what? Your brain. You're just, what? I
sure, I messed
something
up at some point.
What did I do, dude? And he says, hey, Conrad, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. How are you? And he says, hey, we have a really important recruit coming, and I really need you to spend some quality time with this guy. Like, it's really important. And I remember thinking, okay, thank God I'm not in trouble. And this dude shows up, and it's Christian McCaffrey. We just call him Christian. He's like, what's up? I'm Christian. I'm like, hey man, I'm Connor. I'm your host. Like, what do you want to do? He's like, oh, let's just hang out. And then so we're at this freshman dorm because I just wanted to show him campus and take him to, we went to like some SAE party and hung out, and he was just the man, so humble. I had no idea that he was the Gatorade Player of the Year at that point, right?
National.
Yeah.
Best player in high school.
Just had no idea. And so the moment when I knew Christian McCaffrey was going to be Christian McCaffrey is we're in a freshman dorm, and there's a ping pong table. And so I say, hey, dude, do you want to play ping pong? He says, sure. I consider myself somewhat of a ping pong savant. I grew up playing, ping pong in Pasadena with my family. I was the under 10 Altadena Country Club ping pong champion. And we
does
pick
it
it up.
look
I'm
like?
cocky. I serve it to him. He just like slams it, and I lost 21-0. Yeah,
He probably didn't smile. Probably didn't flinch.
The
He was
dude-
just like, this is how this is gonna
the
go.
dude was he just has that like mode, dude. And
I
21-0.
used to tell my friends from, again, the one season that I overlapped with them, is that when people describe athletes like Kobe,
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, Ray Lewis,
yeah,
LeBron, sure, the guys who have this other gear
yeah,
where they are so competitive and so intense.
yeah,
You could be you're on a field full of 21 other very much locked in, intense college football players,
yeah,
and it completely stands out,
dude.
when you're at this level.
Just a whole. I could not agree more. Just I've never even come close to that level, nor will I ever. And I remember then that summer, he shows up. Obviously, he comes, and me and Ben are punting in over the summer practices, and Christian like catches one football, catches another football, then he catches a third football, then he catches a fourth football, then he catches a fifth football.
The true freshman.
A true freshman. First of all, like
But it's just so
confident to do. Like no one else was doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone was just catching it, but he just kept going, and everyone was just like, holy shit. And just the way he moved, I remember thinking like ping pong theory confirmed.
yeah.
This dude's gonna be an absolute
ping
stud.
pong theory. Yeah.
And obviously he came in and did what he did and was just unbelievable.
Back to where we were, you said junior year claim to fame. You didn't really play the junior year.
Didn't play at all.
Not one kick.
I had one PAT against UC Davis. I made it. Yeah, I was sick.
100% on the year.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so still no scholarship.
Still no scholarship.
And you're going, so junior year ends.
Mhm.
The team finishes with what?
Junior ends. The team finishes. I think we were 9-4 or something.
This is Foster Farms.
This was
Bowl.
Foster Farms Bowl.
Yeah, so honestly, a letdown.
Yeah.
So then it's spring ball.
Now it's spring ball, and now, dude, like, now it's like this is my time. This is it, because I put in 3 years of my life into this program: weightlifting, 6 a.m.s, games, traveling, meetings. Right?
And this is a good time to ask.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what a kicker does when they think of it's such a time commitment to college football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like much closer to a full-time job in seasons.
Yeah.
30 plus hours
Totally.
a week easily.
Totally.
Between all the things you've listed. PT,
Yeah.
meetings, mandatory meals, of course the actual practice, runs, weightlifting.
Lifting.
And the kicker and the specialists had to do all of the lifting,
Yeah.
of course, all of the running. I assume that's probably the case in most programs, but so that takes a lot of time, of course, the meals.
For sure.
But practice itself could be 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And not to mention your meetings are you then watching run back the kicks from practice.
And the snaps and the punts. The amount of like Reed Miller long snaps that I've seen where it's literally just we're looking at his hands and where the ball goes.
So technical. It's difficult to stay awake in a skill position meeting sometimes. It's difficult to stay awake in a full offensive team meeting. If I was forced, I don't think there's anything that would be a better sleep aid than to break down technical
film.
long snapping, holding, and kicking film.
Yeah. Dude, we had a small room, so you can't really doze off.
Yeah.
Coach Alomar kept us in line. Dude, so this is how it typically would go. So let's say it's, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, typical practice day. We would show up at, what was it, like 3 or 2:30 for meetings. You guys would have, I think, 2 hours of meetings, right? And you're doing install, you're watching a practice, you're watching, UCLA if we're playing UCLA, USC if we're playing USC.
Getting a full scouting report, every player background.
Versus us, we're literally watching our kicks, from the last game or from the last practice. So that lasts, Alomar would make it go a little longer than it needed to be, but still, it wasn't 2 hours. It was like 30 minutes. And so then we'd get out and we would have 90 minutes to 2 hours before practice. You can't leave and go do something, right? You have practice. So we'd play pool. Dude, we played so much pool. In college, like so much pool. You'd think I'd be better than I am, but I've played like every version of pool, every type of pool game you can play, just so many times. And I think I don't like pool because of it. Dude, this is the only thing in the locker room.
Dude, the specialist, I spent so little time in the players' lounge because it was like, if I have the time to hang out in the players' lounge, I'd rather be somewhere else on campus.
Yeah.
It probably means practice is over or there's a long enough break
Right.
for me to leave. So I spent like no time there. Other guys, some guys would, maybe.
Sure.
But the specialists had like 100
Oh,
times, 200 times the hours logged in the players' lounge. I remember seeing people, you guys would have the Normatec legs on. Getting what even does? What was that, muscle compression?
Yeah, just compressing it. And that's the only time we could do it because there'd be bigger dogs, before and after practice who needed to do it.
We'd be like playing linebacker for 2 hours. Yeah. I remember we'd come down from meetings with specialists who are on like the world's biggest beanbag with the Normatec legs on, probably betting on who's going to beat the other puncher in a game of pool.
Yeah. Dude, so we played a lot of pool. And then we got to practice, and a lot of it was honestly like prepared me, I think, a little bit for my corporate life world because you just always had to look busy, and this is my advice for everyone who's starting a job. You're always busy. If your boss asks you have stuff to do, you're busy. And so for us, we not only needed to look like we were busy to our coach, but we also, more importantly, need to look like we're busy to the other position groups. And so, dude, we did everything. We would do, like, literally, we'd spend 30 minutes when I was a punter just walking around, like, doing drops.
I remember watching you guys do that and thinking,
dude,
occasionally taking quarterback drops in these drills is boring. Walking and watching someone drop a football in front of themselves, not kicking it.
Yeah.
And then picking it up and doing it again.
Yeah.
That's next level.
Dude, and the root of that is kicking is a very muscle-specific movement, right? It's a very explosive movement that uses very specific muscles. So you need to find ways to do like low-impact, non-impact stuff. And a lot of that's pretty boring. So I would do a lot of drop drills when I was punting. And then my 4th and 5th years when I was only kicking, like I would literally get tape and I would walk around the field and tape my exact steps. I would have a tape measure because I knew exactly mathematically how many inches my steps back would be, how many they were from the side, how many inches my foot should be from the ball. And I would mark tape on the field. And then I would go and like dry run my kicks and like visually think, okay, this kick is going in. And we do that for hours all the time.
And we will come back to this, I know. Yeah. But in addition to those hours in the field, the hours in the lounge playing pool, the hours in the meeting room, it's not like you didn't have any film to watch.
Right.
You spent a lot of time inside a virtual reality headset as well.
Yeah, that's right. So my 4th and 5th years, this company called Striver, founded by Derek Belch, kicker, a couple of years ahead of me, they would film our practices. And then on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, before games, I would watch all those good field goals in VR, and I would literally take my steps in the headset, just like I was kicking it in the game. And for me, it was like visualization on steroids. It was an extra practice that no one in the country was getting. And Big Cat from Pardon My Take actually tweeted, maybe we can put it in the bio or something, tweeted a picture of me and calling me a nerd.
I think the tweet was, Stanford makes their kicker practice with VR goggles on as if he wasn't already a big enough nerd.
Yeah.
And it was a picture of you wearing our away travel Stanford sweater vest and khakis.
Khakis and black shoes.
In an away meeting room. So it looks like he's in a classroom by himself, standing in his full, having taken his steps, kicking position with VR goggles plugged into the wall.
Dude.
So bring it back to your off season before your senior year. It really is do or die time. You're still not on scholarship. You obviously had plenty of PT sophomore year. You made one very important extra point against UC Davis. But it seems like there was an opening. There was an opportunity for you to do something. What was your mindset going into that off season?
Yeah, so I was the only kicker on the roster. at this time, and we had one punter named Alex Robinson, great dude. And so Coach Alomar called us into his office, and he says, "Hey guys, look, we have one kicker and one punter. Like, Conrad, you're focusing only on kicking now, because I know you've been our backup kicker and punter the last 3 years, but we only have one dude for each. Alex, you're our punter for spring ball. We'll reevaluate in the fall." So I fully transitioned to just being the kicker, and I go and have an awesome spring ball. I think when we chart all of our field goals, meaning we track how we do, and I was like 94% through all 14 practices of spring ball, with 15 being the spring game. And going through this, I know that Jake Bailey is coming in this fall on scholarship, which is pretty rare for a kicker. Usually,
He's coming in as a kicker.
He's coming in as a kicker and punter. So Jake was the number 1 ranked kicker and punter on like pretty much every website everywhere. And you obviously you don't want to see that, but you see it, right? And
turned out to not be all hype. He's now the starting punter for the Patriots.
Yes. And so I know this dude's coming in. So I'm just like, damn, I need to make every opportunity count. And so I go in with that mentality to the spring game, and our spring game, I remember, was on ESPN because, we'd had a couple of good years leading up to this. And I go out to kick my first field goal in the spring game, feeling pretty tight. And it was a 39-yard field goal on the left hash. I remember it exactly. And we have a bad snap, just like my first kick, my senior year of high school. Exactly the same. Bad snap. It messes up our timing. I stop. I try to just one step and kick it, and I miss it. And I think to myself, oh my God, like, it's back. Like, the yips are just, they're back. Whatever it was in high school, it's still in me. And I run out to kick a 45-yard field goal on the right hash, miss it to the right. And then I kick a 48-yard field goal right down the middle, miss it to the right. And I end up going 0 for 3.
Right down the middle, you were positioned in the middle of the field, and you still missed
exactly.
it. So you're over 3
exactly. Yeah, and kicking this
on ESPN.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're either on one hash down the middle or the other.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
With a little bit of error. But
yep.
So now I'm just, this is on ESPN. I remember my family was up there to support me, because they know this is my time to earn a scholarship. And I blew it, dude. Like, this was the closest thing to a game that you could have. And I was so disappointed in myself. I was so distraught. And after the spring game, you have to sit and sign stuff for fans, if you remember, right? Of course.
Yep.
So all these fans are coming up, and they're like, "Oh, what happened on those field goals? Blah." And I'm just like, "Oh, I just missed it. I'll get better." But I remember a bunch of people brought it up, and I was just really down on myself. And more than anything else, I was scared that, what happened in high school was going to come back. And even more so, I was like, damn, I just lost my scholarship. This is it. I'm now going to just graduate from Stanford. I'm going to go and work in investment banking, and football's over.
Yeah.
And so I go back to the locker room, dude, and there's a freshman named Bobby Okereke. And he comes up to me.
Shout out to WAP.
Fetty, dude. Great guy. And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, man, are you good?" And I said, "Yeah, dude, I'm fine. It was bad." And he goes, "Dude, we all have those days. We know you're the best damn kicker in the country." And he daps me up and walks away. And I remember thinking, holy shit, I'm going to be a senior. A freshman just went out of his way to come up and tell me that he's got my back after I just had the worst performance of my life on national television in front of everyone. And he's going to come out of his way and say that. And that was one of the defining moments that switched my mentality, where it didn't matter what happened. I didn't need to be outcome oriented. I just needed to be process oriented. And as long as I worked as hard as I possibly could, Sunday to Friday, Saturday was going to take care of itself. And even if I did go out and miss all 3 field goals, just like I did in the spring game, the next day when I go back in the locker room, the dudes are still going to have my back.
Yeah.
And I just tied so much like my performance to how my friends and my family and my teammates and my coaches and a training staff was going to view me. And I realized in that moment that like, no, dude, if you are a super hard worker and do things the right way, like the outcome doesn't really matter. People are still going to have your back. They're still going to love you. They're still going to support you. And that just totally changed my outlook on kicking and honestly on life. And so I remember that next Monday, I go and I sit down with Coach Turley, who, in this moment was my biggest supporter. And I made a plan with him from, like May 1 to September 1. And September 1, we were playing at Northwestern to kick off the 2015 season. Yeah. And I stuck to it, dude. And I kicked on the days I was supposed to kick. I recovered on the days I was going to recover. And that summer, we have our summer weightlifting and runs. And how it works is on Monday, Thursday, we have team tech, which is practice at night, right? Obviously, you know that. And basically at the end of team tech, so you've already done a lift, you've already done a run, then you've done a full practice. So now it's like 8 p.m. and you need to go out and kick a field goal. And the entire team circles around and Coach Turley picks, a random spot. It could be 55 yards. It could be 22 yards. You have no idea. And you need to go and you need to make it. If you make the field goal, the run the next day is significantly easier. If you miss the field goal, the run is significantly harder. And that summer I went 20 for 20 on those kicks. And, dude, it was because of that moment. And it was because I missed those kicks in the spring game that I got that kick to be, okay, I need to reevaluate. Me preparing as the backup is not good enough anymore. Me having the mentality of I've got it, it's going to be fine. No, dude, I need to be really intentional in my preparation and I need to focus on the process and then I need to let the outcome take care of itself. And then that fall I ended up setting the Stanford record for highest field goal percentage in a season. And, that came 4 months after the worst performance of my life on ESPN. And I think, dude, that's just a testament to, one, I think everything in life happens for a reason. And you just got to keep your eyes open and you got to listen. And two, just focus on the process, man. Everyone in sports and in business is so worried about the meeting and the presentation and the game. And dude, it's not about that. It's just about prep for it. The best way to mitigate anxiety is preparation. If you walk into a meeting prepared, dude, it doesn't matter if you're meeting with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. If you're prepared, there's nothing to be nervous about. Yeah. Right. And so that honestly, that spring game where I missed those 3 field goals, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. And kicking is all, what have you done lately? I think football is all, what have you done lately? You could be the best kicker in the world. You miss a kick in a big game. Everyone hates you. But it also goes the other way. You could be the worst kicker in the world and hit a game-winning field goal, and that's all anyone remembers.
The kicker position is so difficult and so uniquely difficult in that when you're the quarterback, you get too much praise when things are good, and you get too much blame when things are bad. I think that's a pretty good rule for your entire, whether you're a youth quarterback or a college quarterback or a pro quarterback. When you're a kicker, it's that, except it's with one play. Just so few opportunities.
Yeah. It's so few opportunities. And I think the way that you come to terms with that is you just focus on the process. And again, that's what I learned in that off season, dude. And so I have the same exact process every single game, every single stadium, every single kick. And I got obsessed with the process because I was getting results from it. So literally how my process worked was I would kick before the game. I would just zigzag back in pregame and kick the same amount of field goals every time. Didn't matter if I missed or made it. And then when the game was going, as soon as we crossed the 50-yard line, on first down, I would kick a ball into the net. On second down, I would kick a ball into the net. On third down, I would go and find my holder. I would dap up Dallas Lloyd, my holder, best holder in the world, even better person. And we would always say, hey man, it's just like practice. Literally every time, the same time. And then we'd run out there. I would take my steps. I would look at Dallas and I would say, let's ride. And then I'd kick the ball. And it was just like, you get so just indoctrinated into this process that, dude, it just, the outcome just fully takes care of itself. And I would just really encourage kickers, punters, snappers to try this, and people in other things. Like, dude, just let the outcome take care of it and just worry about getting there. And dude, it's gonna be fine.
So,
Totally.
Spring game happens. What's next?
So I think we're picked to come in the top 3 in the Pac-12. We're entering the season ranked. And so we just thought we were going to roll Northwestern. It's like, it's Northwestern. We're going to kill them. And we come out so flat.
I remember. I watched it.
We end up, I remember first drive, Hogan drives us down, and I run out, I do my process, and I kick a 34-yard field goal, and it goes in, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. Like, I made my first kick. It's not like the spring game. It's not like my senior year of high school. Like, my first kick went in, I'm locked. We end up losing 16-6. I scored all of our points on 2 field goals. Not very impressive. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, like, this is going to be a repeat of last year. It's going to be a repeat of our Foster Farms year. I just really want to give a shout out right now to Ronnie Harris. So Ronnie was the year ahead of me. He was a DB. He was a captain that year. And he was like the heart and soul of our team. No doubt. The absolute man, did everything the right way, loved ball, loved his teammates. When I was kicking in practice, he would literally just stand right next to me and chirp. Because after the spring game, he just wanted me to be great. And he'd be like, come on, Conrad, like, you think you can make this? Like, just chirping, dude. Because he knew that I wanted it. And afterwards, I told him, like, hey, dude, I really appreciate that. Like, seriously.
Yeah, no, honestly.
Because if I can make this some dude just chirping in my ear, like, I could probably go and make a field goal in the Rose Bowl. And so we lose Northwestern. Ronnie calls a team meeting that Sunday. We all come in, and he's like, hey, dude, like, we did not just grind, the hardest 6 months of our life in the offseason to lose 16-6 to Northwestern. So we go out. Our next game is against University of Central Florida. I think Blake Bortles had just left. And we go out first quarter flat at 0-0. And to end the second quarter, I remember I run out to kick a 53-yard field goal on the right hash. First kick of the game. And I'm just like, damn, this is probably important. Like, we're 0-0 UCF. We just lost to Northwestern. And I remember I just come out, do my process, and just stroke it, and it goes in.
53.
And the boys, I remember, were just fired up, dude. Like, we go into the locker room, and now we have some momentum, and we're, like, just ready to rip it. And I remember, like, screaming in the locker room, like, let's go! And we ended up winning, like, 31-7. We scored 28 points in the second half. Win. And so I remember at this point, like, I'm the guy. 3 of 3, made all my PATs, done everything well. And so school's about to start. And I need to know if I'm on scholarship or not, right? Because scholarship pays for your books and pays for your housing. And I was going to need to make, my parents make like a payment for tuition. And so the Monday after the UCF game, I muster up the courage to go into Coach Shaw's office. I walk in and I'm like, hey, Coach Shaw, it's Conrad, do you have a moment? And he just looks at me and he says, damn, you couldn't have waited another 30 minutes? And I'm like, what? And he's like, in the team meeting today, I'm going to announce that you're on scholarship.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah. And I was just like, I felt like an idiot. I was like, damn, I'm so sorry. Like, thank you. This is incredible. Like, thank you so much. This is amazing. This is a dream come true. I walk out. First call is my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm on scholarship. We did it. Like, thank you so much for going to the park with me all the time in high school and, retrieving my ball, the balls when I'd kick them, and called my dad and was just so incredibly fired up. And then we go down to USC and they're ranked number 4. And I remember first drive, I kick a 42-yard field goal And I remember I was so nervous running out to kick it that I was like singing to myself. Because I was
your mind's in another place.
Yeah, I just was not on this planet.
Yeah.
I was singing, I think like a Green Day song from high school. I was like, just because I was just so nervous. I'm like, I'm in the Coliseum again, kicking against the number 4 team in the country. Make it. And then end of the game, we're up 7. I remember with a minute left, I get called out to kick a 48-yard field goal. And I remember thinking, if I miss this, Cody Kessler is going to drive them down. They're going to score a touchdown. It's going to go to overtime, and we're going to lose. Yeah. And so I remember I just thought I might as well just make it. And so I made it, and then we won by 10. And that was it. And then we had a great year from there, dude.
Seems like these simple swing thoughts. And maybe the simple self-talk occasionally is pretty good.
Keep it simple.
You've not said, it's easy, just like practice.
Just like practice.
Might as well make it.
And let's ride.
That's
it. That's it. That's all you need, dude.
That's pretty good.
That's it.
What were some of the other high points in that season that you remember? Just if you could rattle them off.
Dude, so we'll start with, we go up to Washington State.
Yeah.
And Washington State's unranked. It was
this
on
Halloween game?
On Halloween, dude. Yes. On Halloween.
A friend's house, I remember.
So we go down. 2 things I want to say about this game. One, it was hailing so hard that they almost moved the game to Sunday. And it's a turf field. Like, it was insane weather in Pullman, Washington. And my dad went to Washington State, right? That's my second favorite team down the Pac-12 after Stanford. And so he had all of his buddies there. And, they're all talking before the game, like, go Cougs and stuff like that.
Reunion for your dad.
Yeah. Reunion for him. Ton of people up there. And the game was super, super flat. I remember Hogan, rushed for 2 touchdowns. And we end up being down by 2 with a minute and a half left. Hogan drives us down. And I kick, a 26-yard field goal to put us up. I remember it was just, raining so hard that the water was literally coming sideways into my face. And when you go to these away games, dude, as a kicker, the kicking net stays in the same spot the whole game, which means the fans that you're next to are the same fans the whole game. And so they just chirp you the whole game. It doesn't matter if you're at Washington State, Oregon, Utah, Notre Dame. They see your name on the back of the jersey, Ukropina. They look you up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They're Googling you. They're yelling your parents' names, on your Stanford, go Stanford bio and everything. And I remember that game, there were these dudes who were just chirping me the whole time. And it's a thing where you can't acknowledge them because as soon as you do, you're screwed. They're going to be chirping you the entire game. So I remember I told all of your younger kickers, dude, if anyone chirps you, you cannot acknowledge. Because if you do, you're toast.
Do not engage.
Do not engage.
Yeah.
And so I remember I go down, I make that field goal, and then their kicker comes out, and he was 4 for 4 on the night already. He had to make a 45-yard field goal on the left hash. And if he makes it, we win. We wouldn't have gone to the Rose Bowl that year. And I remember we call a timeout. The kicker goes to the student section and starts going like this. And I remember I turned to Alex Robinson, our puncher, and I'm like, he's missing it. He's missing it.
That's not part of the process.
It's not part of the process, dude. Don't get fired up with the student section on Halloween when you're trying to kick a game-winning field goal. He misses it, we win, and I run back to the fans, I remember, and I just blew him a kiss. I don't know why, but that just felt appropriate. And they were like, F you, dude, flipping me off and stuff. And I remember one of them messaged me after the game, and he just said, LOL. On Instagram, DM'd me, and I saw him. It was obviously him. So I was like, okay, he's being a good sport.
Were there ever any times at any stadium where you had to legitimately hold back laughter because the chirps were pretty funny?
Oh, my sophomore year, we played at Army, and they somehow got a bunch of dudes' girlfriends, just Facebook, and they made fat heads, blow up heads of the girlfriends. And all the cadets were holding them up.
That's pretty good.
Which was pretty good.
Yeah. That season ends with a massive Rose Bowl victory.
Yeah.
Things could not have been rolling any better, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Stanford at that point. I mean, I had out of nowhere gotten contact about Stanford that October, literally 5 days before this Washington State game.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Out of nowhere. Came home from practice and had a Twitter DM from the QB room, essentially.
Yeah.
From Tavita and Picasso.
Picasso.
Out of nowhere. Like, I was your recruiting journey. Mine mirrors yours in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like,
it's awesome.
Thought I was going to Ivy's 100%.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, get this message. So I just remember being and then I had just I did the application, got in on like December 11th, and like the day later, 2 days later, I called him and was like, man. So my Stanford engagement as a recruit was like a 45-day whirlwind. The entire thing happened from first point of contact to I am committed, part of this recruiting class was so quick. So I was so locked in on the New Year's Day game to watch you guys destroy Iowa.
Yeah.
And things like could not have been more fun. And not to mention, so super important that we don't cross over this one. Getting to that Rose Bowl was a game against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That was a game that I visited for as a recruit in November.
Yeah.
Notre Dame was number 4.
Yeah, I think so.
Either 3 or 4.
4.
In the country. They had Sean Kaiser, quarterback, stud. Just well-rounded. Super formidable team to be showing.
Incredible team.
And game came down to the wire, and it was up to you to make a kick to win the game on senior night.
Yeah.
Tell the people what they want to hear.
Dude.
Tell them the Notre Dame kick story that may or may not have been a sliding door moment for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it absolutely was, and definitely told the story a couple of times, and I love doing it. And so it's senior night. It's Thanksgiving week. It was just a huge, huge game, right? And we knew it had implications for them. If they won, they would go to the national championship, right? Because top 4 go. And if
the college football playoff.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And we knew that if we won, I think if North Carolina beat Clemson in the ACC championship, then we would have gone as a 2-loss team because we had lost to Northwestern and Oregon. Oregon, I don't want to talk about, but we had a chance. So we were like, dude, this is huge. We want to send Stanford, obviously, to the college football playoff. And senior night, stadium sold out. And it was just a back and forth game. Like I still see the game sometimes randomly on like Fox Sports.
Dude, it was one of the best college football games of the last decade.
It was awesome.
It was incredible.
It just has everything. It has McCaffrey and Hogan and their defense. Our defense.
Hogan's last home game at Stanford.
Senior
night.
Such a stud. Yeah. Senior night. I remember there was about 90 seconds on the clock. And I go back to the sideline and I go to our punter, Alex Robinson, and I say, hey, dude, and you can ask him, he can attest. I said, hey, dude, like, I just have a feeling that they're going to go down and score, and then I'm going to kick a field goal over the game.
No way.
Straight up. Yeah. 100% happened. Like, just wild. And just for context too, dude, like this is game 12 of what would be a 14-game season, right? 14 with the Pac-12 championship and the Rose Bowl. And so at this point, like, you're just rolling. Right. You've done this for 12 weeks, like day in, day out, all the practices, all the VR, all the, tape work in practice. And so you're just kind of rolling. If this was the first game of the season, I feel like it would feel much different than game 12.
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember, first down, Kevin gets face masked. Then we get a first down from that. Then he throws the ball to Kajus over the middle. And I remember this was the first time in my career when I was taking my kicks into the net that there was a camera just like right in my face. Just right, huge, one of the huge cameras just right in my face. And I had to think, like, damn, they're probably like showing me on TV right now. This is weird. It's kind of just like a weird thing to think about. And so I remember I run out. I take my steps and I see that there are 6 seconds on the clock. So I'm thinking that I'm going to kick the ball and then I'm going to have to kick off. And so I go out, I take my steps, I say, let's ride. And Brian Kelly calls a timeout. I remember running back to Coach Alomar. I remember like throwing a shaka because I'm just like trying to stay chill. Yeah, I thought that was going to be on TV.
Just force the chill.
Just force the chill. Yeah, dude. Fake it till you make it, right? I remember I throw the shock. I'm like, dude, I'm chilling. Coach Alomar and I talk about who knows why. He's probably just like, kick the ball, right? Like, there's nothing to talk about. I remember running back out, me taking my steps, saying, let's ride. And like, that's all I remember. I kind of remember the ball touching my foot. And when it hit my foot, I remember thinking like, oh, that feels pretty good. And at this point, I've kicked so many footballs that once the ball touches my foot, I know if it's going in or not, right? Like just when you throw a pass coming off your fingers, you know if it's going to be good or not. As soon as the ball touches my foot, I know if it's in. And all I really remember is like the feeling of the ball touching my foot. And then I remember looking up and seeing the ball go in. And I remember my first thought was, wow, that's cool. Like, that's cool. It went in. Like I just, because I was just so in this like mode of, it doesn't matter. I need to just focus on this process. It's going to take care of itself. And so I'm just like, oh man, like that's pretty cool. It went in. And then next moment, Josh Garnett, our 330 pounds guard, is like picking me up. And I remember just thinking like, dude, we need to kick off. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I'm not really celebrating. And then eventually I look at the clock and, they just run it out because just everyone has stormed the fields. And then this is where I think you'll like it. So I remember thinking, this is probably going to be on TV. Like probably. I wasn't sure. I was like, this will probably be on TV. So I should probably like show my face. Like that'd be pretty cool for the pictures. So I take off my helmet. Because I wanted.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I take off my helmet because I was thinking like, dude, it'd be cool to like have my face on TV, I guess. Because everything's with the helmet. So I take it off. And then I remember thinking, like, dude, it'd be cool if I like pointed. I don't know. Dude, I was just in a different world. And so I like point. And if you like Google my name, the first picture that comes up is me like pointing. I wasn't pointing at anyone, dude. Wasn't pointing at anyone at all. But it's just like me going like this. Pointing. Yeah, dude. That kick didn't happen like that night. That kick happened at the spring game 6 months before. That kick happened every pressure kick over the summer. And one cool thing is, we talked about I would do VR before games. The first kick on my VR playlist that I would watch Thursday, Friday, Saturday before games was 45 yards right down the middle. The Notre Dame kick was 45 yards right down the middle. And dude, if you put them next to each other, they look identical. And so call it whatever you want, but I think that's when preparation meets opportunity. And that's just doing something very consistently and focusing on the process. And it worked out. And it was awesome, man. It was awesome. Great to share it with my teammates. And dude, it was the best.
I stormed the field.
Hell yeah.
I think my parents may have stormed the field. Yeah. We were there
Dude,
I talked to KJ about it in the first episode.
Yeah.
We were running on the field. We were in the locker room after the game. It was insane. And that picture of you pointing, isn't that in the locker room forever?
It is, yeah. It's in the locker room, and it was the first page of Sports Illustrated that next week. So the cover was like LeBron, and then he opened up and it's me.
So awesome.
Yeah, it's me just pointing, dude.
Insane.
So funny.
Championship happens. Rose Bowl happens. How did that go?
Went awesome. Rose Bowl, my dad got 250 tickets. I'm from Pasadena. Yeah, 250. And
That's
if you listen to the broadcast of the Rose Bowl, Brent Musburger actually came down before the game. I was warming up. He came up and he said, Conrad. I was like, hi, Brent Musburger. Like, I used to listen to you on, NCAA football.
Yeah.
And he said, you're from Pasadena, right? I said, yeah. And he said, oh, like, do you have people here? And I said, yeah, my dad bought 250 tickets. I just said 250 because I thought it was a high number. And in the broadcast, when I kicked a field goal, he says, Conrad's from Pasadena and his dad has 250 tickets, and like hands to my family. It's so funny.
That is
dude.
so great. Hope you have that saved somewhere.
Rose Bowl, never been more nervous before a game though. I threw up like 3 times.
Really? You're a puker.
Yeah, dude. I threw up probably before like half of my games, and the games that I threw up before, I always did really well.
How far before the game were you puking?
I was puking like
pre warm up, post warm up.
I was puking post warm up. And then for me, once the first play happened, it was good. Like you get the first kickoff, I'm ready to roll.
Yep.
But I remember at Colorado, my senior year, before games, I wasn't really good at eating because I was so nervous. And so I remember Coach Turley told me just to drink orange juice because it has sugar and nutrients and stuff. And so I only drank orange juice. Yeah. I only drank like 6 cups of orange juice before the Colorado game. And the game was at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And, I'm like, all right, guys, let's go. And I'm just like, oh shit, I'm going to throw up. So I go and I don't make it to the bathroom and I puke all over my white jersey. And so I just have orange juice throw up all over my jersey in the Colorado game. And I end up having an awesome game. Ball out, made all my kicks.
Nerves out early.
Got him out early. But fifth year comes, I do well. I think I make 88% of my field goals. I was 90% my senior year. Kicked 27 field goals my fifth year. For context, I kicked 20 my fourth year. So Coach Shaw definitely trusted me. Kicked a lot of long field goals, which was fun. Ended up beating Mitch Trubisky in the
Sun Bowl.
El
Paso, Texas.
Who could forget? You were there.
I was there.
And I made 4 field goals, and I was the special teams MVP. And since I had learned from the Notre Dame moment, I remember, okay, I need to kind of be a showman because that way you'll get pictures and stuff and people will care about it. So I got the special teams MVP trophy and I just throw it above my head.
I remember that.
Yeah. And all the Sun Bowl girls around it, they're just what the hell is this kicker doing? But dude, it's just, as a kicker, when you get your opportunities, you gotta take them. And I think that doesn't just apply to kicks, that applies to the media, right? Because outside of that, they don't care. Yeah. They want to talk to McCaffrey and
seize your moment for sure.
So for all the kickers, dude, when you make a kick, take your helmet off,
Point at nothing.
Yeah, why not, dude?
Where's the trophy?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. We kind of flew through the fifth year. What was it like being a fifth year at that point? Did it feel like you'd been with the program a million years?
Yeah, I felt like I was secure, and I'd come off such a good year in my fourth year that I was just the job was mine. I just needed to do what I had done. And I started getting a lot of stuff from agents that year. And so they're not allowed to call you in season, but they can like write you letters or something. There's like some weird loopholes. I would get like letters from dudes all the time from all these different agencies. And I thought I was like for sure going to play in the NFL because at this point, dude, in your career, like all anyone talks to you about when you're at home for Christmas, when you're at home for Thanksgiving, when you're at home for Easter, your friends, like the agents, all they tell you is like, wow, you're going to be the best NFL kicker. That's all anyone talks. You go home, you're like, oh, it's Conrad the kicker. Like that's your identity. And they all just hype you up. And so I thought at this point, like, oh my God, I'm going to play in the NFL for 10 years.
Did you feel cocky or did you feel like, I can't believe that there's this much hype around me?
I think it was more the latter for sure, because I've always been a confident person, but I don't think I've ever been cocky. And I've been humbled so many times, like in high school and in the spring game, that I don't think I had enough room to be cocky. I finished my 5th year. I get an agent, and I was one of 4 kickers who got invited to the 2017 NFL Combine. And I learned that I was the number 1 ranked field goal kicker, and I was unranked as a kickoff guy. And a part of that is Jake Bailey and I had been switching off a lot throughout those last 2 years on kickoffs. He had a much bigger leg than me. So I go to the NFL Combine. It was myself, Harrison Butker, who has won 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, Jake Elliott, who has a Super Bowl ring with the Eagles. And then Zane Gonzalez, who started with the Browns, went to the Cardinals, and now he's on the Carolina Panthers. So it's literally me and then 3 dudes, like 2 of whom have Super Bowl rings, all 3 of whom are still in the NFL. And then there's like the ugly duck, Conrad. But so I go to the Combine, and how the Combine works. NFL Combine's insane. Like, just, I've never been to anything like it. It's just the craziest 8 days of your life. Basically, you have 7 days of interviews. You get interviewed by all 32 NFL teams. You have testing. So you take some tests, like the Dallas Cowboys have their own like IQ tests that you have to take. And so you take all these tests and then you get medical examinations from all 32 NFL teams. And they'll ask you stuff like, do you drink alcohol? And it's like, yeah, like I went to college, you know what I mean? And just all these mind games and just two funny things. Like one, the special teams coach for the Arizona Cardinals asked me how far I could kick a pencil. And he like, I was like, oh, I could probably, kick it and hit, that wall. Like, oh, really? Show me. And he like held the pencil and I like kicked it legitimately in
an empty room.
In like an empty room, in like a meeting room with just him and the Cardinals people. Just absurd. And one guy, I think it was for the Browns.
Did you take your full steps?
Oh yeah, dude, I was showing off. I kicked it.
Process.
And one dude from the Browns like pulled out my private Instagram and pulled up a picture from my sophomore year with my ex-girlfriend and was like, "Are you still dating this girl? Like, what's going on? What's going on in your love life?" And I'm like, "What? Like, what? I'm a kicker, dude. Just ask me if I can make field goals and kick off, right?" So it was just absurd, and they're just getting into everything. And we sit down to take the Wonder Lick, and let me tell you, like, there were some dudes who just were like blatantly cheating and just not
interested in taking the Wonder Lick probably in the first place.
Yeah, and just, the guys just do not follow the rules, right? I remember, so Leonard Fournette, he was in my draft class. You weren't allowed to have any outside guests, like in the hotel or in Indianapolis Colts Stadium.
Like at all?
Like not at all.
No.
Like, no, it's just you're there for the combine.
Yeah.
But Leonard Fournette, he just had like a crew of dudes.
Like how many?
Like 5 to 10 dudes at points who were just like there with him.
His entourage.
Yeah, and they like weren't just wearing street clothes, like just walking around with him. And I'm just like, why in the world are there like 10 dudes in Indianapolis? Like the dude went to LSU. That doesn't make any sense. Like just does not make any sense. But they're just like there, dude. And I was like, okay, like sure. So you have 8 days, and then the last day of the combine is like the skills day, and it's kind of segmented where each people go different days. And so the last day was the day where we finally get to kick.
Yeah.
And at 4 a.m., we're supposed to kick at 8 a.m. At 4 a.m., we get knocks on our door that all of the kickers, punters, and snappers have random drug tests. And it's like, none of us are juicing for we're going to need to go kick field goals. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It was totally just to throw us off.
Yeah.
100%. We get up, we have to wait and sit in this line for like an hour, give them our urine to do this drug test. Then, it's like 5:30 and you have to kick at 8. And so it's like, do I go back to sleep? Well, now I'm just already so nervous. Like I can't go back to sleep.
Were you sleeping before that knock on the door? Or were you ever a sleepless guy before big kicks, before big games?
Dude, great question. So before every game, I would drink NyQuil.
You would?
Yeah.
Just knock yourself out.
Just knock myself out because I knew if I didn't, I would just stay up.
Yeah.
And so in hindsight, after listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman, I would definitely not take NyQuil and do more natural stuff. But yeah, I would take NyQuil. And so I woke up at 4 a.m. and I was so groggy. So I remember, obviously taking the sleep stuff. And, so now it's like, okay, well, I guess I should go like roll out and get ready to kick.
Yeah.
Every single coach at the NFL Combine had said, Conrad, you're the number one field goal kicker on our board. We don't even need you to kick field goals. We're only here to see you kick off. And leading up to the NFL Combine, I kind of knew this. And so I had gone and trained with a bunch of different trainers. I went down to San Diego. I went to Birmingham, Alabama. I saw all these different dudes to try to like fine tune and get my kickoffs to the next level.
Yeah.
And honestly, dude, in hindsight, it hurt way more than I helped. And if I would have just not done anything, stayed at Stanford, kicked by myself, I honestly think I would have had a much better shot at making the NFL because I changed my kickoff form. And because of that, I wasn't comfortable. And so I remember I kicked off good, but I kicked one kickoff out of bounds. So how it works is you kick 4 down the middle, 4 directional right, 4 directional left. And my first directional left, I kicked it out of bounds. And I was just like, damn, that's it. You can't do it. For context, Harrison Butker, he's like 6'4". He was kicking him like through the uprights, like just next level. And
how'd you do on the field goals?
Field goals, I went 25 of 25. made all of them.
Nobody else made all of them.
Nobody else made all of them. Supposedly, the lore is that no one in the combine history has made all of them.
Yeah.
You go back to like 56 in the middle. So it works as you start, in the front right, and then you kind of zigzag back, and then you end 56 in the middle. And I made all of them. And again, dude, the lesson here is I made all of them because it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like everyone had said, you're the best field goal kicker. We don't even care. But everyone was like, kickoffs. And I put too much pressure on myself, and I changed my form, and I got in my head, and I didn't kick off well. And so I end up not getting drafted. NFL draft comes and goes. I end up getting signed by the San Francisco 49ers. And this starts like the most tumultuous year of my life, like the hardest year of my life, hands down. So I go to the 49ers. I'm there. I kick super well, super prepared, make all my kicks, and they sign Robbie Gould to like a 5-year contract, who was the kicker at the Bears before that. So
Kicking legend.
So
you're gone.
Yep. So how it works is when you're released in the NFL, your name goes on like the waivers, and you can immediately get picked up by another team. So I remember I fly from there to the Washington then Redskins. Kick really well there. They re-signed Dustin Hopkins, who was their kicker for the last few years. So I get released.
Gone again.
I go from there to the Atlanta Falcons. They stick with their guy. I get released, and then they go to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm in the Kansas City Chiefs training camp in the preseason of 2017, and it's me and Harrison Butker. And we're in St. Joe's, Missouri, at like Western Missouri College or something. Super windy. And Harrison just had a bigger leg than me, dude. And I remember I made more field goals than him in camp, but his kickoffs, like he could kick off into the wind and kick touchbacks, and I would hit him to like the goal line.
Yeah.
And so they end up signing him, and dude, there is no more lonely place than being a like fringe NFL player. People think of the NFL as like Tom Brady making all this money, it's glorious, but when you're a fringe NFL player, you have zero friends. No one cares about you. The coaches don't care about you. The equipment staff doesn't care about you. The other players don't care about you because in the preseason in the NFL, it's a 90-man roster, right? So they can like bring dudes in and out pretty
it's probably a
fluidly.
revolving door that whole
It's just
preseason time.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. And then in the regular season, it drops down to 53. So, guys don't want to make friends with the backup kicker. Like, why would they? I will say the two dudes who are the nicest to me was one, Colt McCoy. His locker was next to mine when I was in Washington. And then two was Patrick Mahomes, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, the man. Just such a good dude.
Says a lot.
So nice. Yeah. At this point, he was a first-round draft pick and never played an NFL game. I remember at the NFL Combine, I walked up to him just with dudes, just being funny Conrad. And I was talking to him, and he was like, oh, what's your name? He's like, oh, I'm Patrick. I was like, oh, nice. Where'd you play? He's like, Texas Tech. I was like, oh, sick. What position do you play? He's like, oh, I play quarterback. And I was like, same. And he laughed. Yeah, he thought that was funny when, obviously was not a quarterback based on my stature. But so I like to think we're friends. That happened. I get released from the Kansas City Chiefs right before the season starts. And kind of a crazy moment happened that I would love to share. So when you get cut, it's like the GM, they text you, say, hey, you need to go to the GM's office, and that means you're cut. So every morning you kind of like wake up and check your phone frantically, do I have a text, whatever. And, I get the text, I go in, and they say, basically, okay, where do you want us to fly you? Because I'll fly you anywhere back home. And my family was in Seattle at the time, and so I'm like, okay, just fly me to Seattle. And I just couldn't, this was the fourth time being released from the fourth team, and I had so much pressure on myself. I wanted to make it, right? This was supposed to be my dream. And I'm wearing all my Kansas City Chiefs gear. And there had been an article written that week, kicking battle in Kansas City, blah, blah, blah. And it wrote about me. And I'm sitting in the Kansas City airport, and I'm like, damn, I think I need to call my mom and tell her that I'm flying to Seattle because I'm going to go see them. And I just start crying. Because it just kind of all came out, dude. When you're trying to make these NFL teams, every kick matters, every lift matters, everything matters. You don't want to say the wrong thing in a meeting and look like an idiot because then maybe they'll cut you. it's just so much pressure. It's just a different level, when you're trying to make it than from college. And I think all that pressure just kind of came out because I was so sad. Like, fuck, I've been cut fourth time for the fourth team. Like, I was supposed to be this NFL kicker. I'm supposed to be the guy. Like, this is my identity. I'm Conrad the kicker. And I'm like crying in the Kansas City airport. And I remember this flight attendant comes up to me, true story. And she says, "Excuse me, like, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm so sorry." I'm like, "I'm sorry." I'm like crying, like wiping away tears. And she says, "Are you Conrad Ukropina?" And I'm like, yes, I am. And she says, "Oh, like, did you just get cut?" And I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm like kind of in shock, like wiping my tears, like, this is so weird. The Kansas City fans are next level.
Yeah, okay.
And she goes, "It's okay, sweetie. Like, I have seen many people in here as a flight attendant get released, and then I see them next week and they're playing on another NFL team." And I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, dude, this lady, like, just went out of her way, spoke to some random dude who she doesn't know, and tried to make me feel better, like, tried to comfort me.
Wow.
And I know it doesn't sound like that wild, but just in the context of the moment, it absolutely changed my life. And I just remember right then, I was like, oh my God, football doesn't matter, relationships matter. Like, people matter. There's so much more to life than football. And I just want to be a good person and support my friends and support people around me, because that lady just did it to me, who I will never see again. Right. And I think that was the start of my journey to help me, like, get over being Conrad the kicker and becoming like Conrad the human, like Conrad the person who wants to be a good brother, teammate, friend. And yeah, man. So that was just really, really impactful for me. So shout out that lady wherever she is. You are the best.
Wow.
And so I end up moving to San Francisco. I start working for Striver, the VR company that would film our practices. And I would work from like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then I would go and kick. And I did that from August of 2017 until March of 2018. During that time, I had one offer to go and kick for the Canadian football team that Johnny Manziel was on. It was like Calgary something.
Is the Calgary Stampede?
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever team Johnny Manziel was on.
Something like that.
And I remember I considered it, and I was talking to my agent, and he's like, "Dude, I think you have a shot in the NFL still. Like, as soon as you go to Canada, like, that's it. You're a Canadian kicker. You can never get out of that." So I decided to just keep training. And dude, it sucked. Like, I would literally go and I would like kick the ball on Stanford's campus, and then I would like go and get it.
Oh.
I went from kicking with the Kansas City Chiefs in like Arrowhead Stadium to now I'm like kicking a football and getting it for 8 months.
Oh.
And I just totally just fell out of love with the game, because I realized that I love the teammates. I love the people. I don't love kicking. Like, I don't love kicking a football, but I love being with you in the locker room and, having Shane Scove help me with my bike chain, and becoming friends with McCaffrey and Hogan and Barry Sanders and Dallas Lloyd and just all these awesome dudes. And Zach Hoffpower and Reed Miller, right? And just everyone. And so I end up having one more tryout with the Arizona Cardinals in March of 2018. And dude, when you go to these tryouts, like, there's like 15 kickers, and they're all studs. They're all dudes who have played in D1. A lot of them have played in the NFL before, and they're trying to get back in. And it's literally like every single one of those dudes could kick on an NFL roster, and it's just who's going to show up that day and ball out. Yeah. And just like, by ball out, I mean ball out, like
be perfect.
60-yard field goals, perfect. Yeah. Kickoffs in the back of the end zone. It's just who's on. Like in golf, like who's just fluid, hitting on all cylinders. I make it to the second day. They like release some dudes the first day, make it the second day, and then I don't make the team. They actually end up signing Young Ho Koo, who's kind of the Falcons kicker. Yeah. So they took him, and he was a beast. And I remember I'm sitting in the Phoenix airport, and I just remember thinking, dude, the last thing in the world that I want to do tomorrow on Monday is go and kick a football by myself on Stanford's campus. So I go on LinkedIn, and I'm like, okay, I know that I want to work on teams. I know that someday I want to start my own company, and I know that I want to learn about business. So I'm like, okay, consulting. Great. Checks all the boxes. Go on LinkedIn, and I start messaging every single person with some sort of a Stanford connection that works at Bain, BCG, McKinsey. Eventually, I find a partner at Bain who is like, yeah, I remember you from Stanford. Sets me up with a recruiter. I get an off-cycle interview at Bain. I use that interview to get an interview at BCG, which I used to get an interview at McKinsey. And then I start at McKinsey 2 months later, in June of 2018, as an analyst in the San Francisco office, just purely from like cold messaging people on LinkedIn. I'm there for 2 years from 2018 to 2020, and it's just like full consulting mode. And I really needed that because my identity was Conrad the Kicker. You go home for Christmas, oh, Conrad the Kicker. Like the amount of times that I've heard in my life, dude, I'm so shocked that you're not in the NFL. Like, or the amount of texts that I've gotten where a kicker misses a field goal. Even this past year with the Dallas kicker. Yeah. You would have made that kick. Yeah. They need you. The Cowboys need you. I was literally getting this past season, like 10 texts. Dude, the Cowboys, like, they need you. Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just like, dude.
Ship has sailed.
The ship has sailed. They don't need me. Yeah. And the fact that I was able to get a job at McKinsey really helped me mentally because it was, okay, Conrad the Kicker is over. Now I can really latch on to this brand and team and thing that I can be proud of. And it really helped me move on. And when I started at McKinsey, there was inklings of having one more tryout. I think it was with the Rams. And I said no. I'd been at McKinsey for a couple of months, and I could have gone down and done the tryout. I would have had to leave the project that I was on, and that would have been weird, and go and kick. And I hadn't really been training the last month. So I said no. And that's when I realized, I'm over it.
So within McKinsey, you said you're on the tech team.
That's right.
Did they send you anywhere cool? Were you on Silicon Valley type cases?
Yeah, dude. So I'm coming into McKinsey San Francisco. So I think I'm going to be solving these, world problems for Facebook and Twitter and Apple. So of course, my second project, I get sent to Bentonville, Arkansas, for Walmart. And I'm there for 6 months. That was difficult, but I enjoyed it. I love my team. I really like the consumer space. And so I got into it, and I wanted to be a team player. During my 6 months there, Halloween came. Our manager, sent out this email to our group, and hey, on Tuesday is Halloween. Like maybe we should, dress in something fun.
In Bentonville,
Arkansas. So I, as the most junior person, get us a dinner reservation at the nicest restaurant in Bentonville, which is called the Preacher's Son. It's in an old, refurbished church. It's kind of awesome. And it's Halloween. So I'm thinking, okay, she said we're something fun. I'm just going to bring my Olaf from Frozen onesie that Pat McFadden had left in my apartment for some reason from the Halloween prior. So I had it. So, I'm getting ready we finish the day. We're like, all right, let's meet at dinner at 8. Go back to the hotel. And I'm like, all right, dude, I'm putting it on. So I just put on a white t-shirt and the Olaf onesie, and I show up, and everyone in the Preacher's Son, they're all consultants. It's just all consultants here to help Walmart. And then I walk in, and my whole team is wearing their entire suits and everything. And I just have on this full Olaf onesie, and I had been there a month on the project. And I just think to myself, oh God, dude, I messed up. This is not, we're not at an SAE party right now. This is corporate McKinsey. This is a different world. And fortunately, the senior partner from McKinsey was there, and he loved it. He loved it. He was like, this dude's an idiot. I cannot believe he's wearing this. I've never seen anything like it. And so the fact that he liked it, the top down made it okay.
But you didn't have to stay terribly long because you obviously moved out to Stanford Business School.
Yep.
How did that happen? Also, something that I've talked to my brother about, I've talked to people about, is and I mentioned that it was a sliding door moment, I think, for your life. You've put it that way to me. The Notre Dame kick.
Yeah.
What impact did that have on you going to McKinsey, going to GSB, being where you are today?
Yeah.
Do you think that it actually changed your path?
Dude, no doubt. No doubt changed my path. And I'm just so grateful that was able to happen. And so McKinsey, I remember in my final interview, I was interviewed by a guy named Roger Roberts, who's a senior partner in McKinsey's San Francisco office. And the first thing I sit down, his first question was, so what were your thoughts before the Notre Dame kick? And I remember just, yes, let's go. Like, that's the first question. Huge Stanford football fan. He's still one of my mentors to this day. He's awesome. So I definitely think that, that had an impact with me moving to McKinsey, just helping people, I guess, recognize who I was. And then on my Stanford Business School acceptance letter, the dean of admissions had handwritten, "Welcome to the GSB. That Notre Dame kick is still like the best thing I've ever seen in a football game."
Wow.
And so, yeah, it just was totally a sliding glass door moment.
And the GSB is a crazy place. I walked into this class that I took as an undergrad. It was sports business management with George Foster, who's a legend of the GSB.
Yeah.
And a big supporter of Stanford football. I walked into that class and I looked down the aisle, and I'm sure there were a lot of other semi-famous people in my midst that I didn't even realize, but I looked down the aisle and there's Toby Gerhardt, who to me, when I had first watched, speaking of the Harbaugh era, like the most badass Stanford football player.
No doubt.
Ever. So I'm starstruck by that. And then behind me, there's this guy, this giant man, who looks a lot older than most of the students. And I looked at Dylan Johnson, who was in the class with me, and I was like, where do I recognize this guy from? I know this is someone. And he goes, dude, that's Zaza Pachulia. Okay.
Oh my God.
All right, interesting. And then, the same week, the lecturers in that class were unbelievable. The same week, the lecturer was literally Billy Beane of the Oakland A's, who the entire Moneyball book and movie is based on. Like, crazy stuff like that seems to happen all the time in the GSB ecosystem. What were some of the crazier elements or moments at the GSB?
That's a great question. I think to start, you hit the nail on the head. The amount of incredible speakers that the GSB gets on a very consistent basis is incredible. I remember we had Gwyneth Paltrow in one of my classes, and for some reason, this was our first year when we were on Zoom, and so my picture, for some reason, because I think I spoke in the beginning, was like right next to hers the whole time. So I got like 20 people sending me screenshots of, me just looking like an idiot in class right next to Gwyneth Paltrow, like talking. So that was pretty funny. But then, you get guys like Steve Kerr, you get incredible business people like Joel Peterson, who was the CEO of JetBlue, like teaching your class. Like he's literally, this dude's the CEO of a Fortune 500 airline, just incredible person. Now he's his own VC fund, and he's like sitting 2 days a week teaching you. That's just absolutely incredible. So I think it starts there with the people, the professors who come in, but then of course the students themselves. It's just like Stanford undergrads who are so type A and gregarious. And I think the biggest word is passionate, that every GSB person has something that they're super passionate about. Where there's literally like, dude, I just love finance. Like I'm Derek Yan, who is one of my roommates, and I'm just obsessed with private equity and can build a model literally in my sleep. Yeah. Or, I'm someone who just has done government my whole life and just
policy guy.
Yeah, totally. And just
probably a guy in every category.
It's just a guy, dude, in everything, and the gals.
Or gal.
Yeah, guy, gender neutral, and it just you can just learn so much from them. And at the end of the day, I just know that all of them would you could hire them for pretty much anything, and they would just be a great problem solver, and they would apply themselves. So I think that is really the big differentiator.
Well, I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah, dude, this was epic.
It's so fun. Like chatting with people, obviously, who I know and have known, and there's no shortage of things to talk about with you. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you could come on. I'm glad we could do it live. It's super fun to do it in person.
So fun, dude. I feel like we could literally, already talk for 2.5 hours. I feel like we could literally talk for another 2.5 hours easily.
That's the way it goes. It's very easy to get going on these things.
Absolutely. And someday we're going to do the reversal. I'm going to interview you. Maybe this is episode 2, maybe on episode 200 or 20 or something. We can do it. And we can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, I got to do it again.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks,
Brent,
dude.
you're the man. Thanks, dude.